The film opens with two men, Jones and Billy, walking out of a shabby roadside motel on the edge of town. They look tired, calm, but something about them feels off. Jones complains that they've run out of drinking water and tells Billy to go back inside to grab some. When Billy walks back in, he's met with a horrifying sight: bodies lying on the floor, blood splattered across the walls. It turns out, Jones and Billy are not ordinary travelers. They're ruthless robbers who prey on small, unguarded stores far from the city. As Billy fills a bottle with water, a small noise catches his attention. A terrified little girl crawls out from her hiding spot, the only survivor of the massacre. Without hesitation, Billy raises his gun and silences her, ensuring there are no witnesses left behind. The story then shifts to a quiet morning in a small Indiana town. We meet Tom Stahl, a kind and humble man who owns a local diner. Tom Stahl lives a quiet, simple life with his wife and kids. His teenage son, Jack, is a student at the local high school and a talented baseball player. That afternoon, Jack led his team to a big win during a school game. The crowd cheered, his friends celebrated, everything seemed perfect. But the good mood didn't last long. In the locker room, Jack was confronted by a frustrated student named Bobby who couldn't handle losing. Still angry over the defeat, Bobby tried to pick a fight with Jack. Instead of taking the bait, Jack stayed calm. He told Bobby that he didn't want any trouble, even calling himself a coward just to avoid the fight. His self-deprecating honesty made everyone in the locker room laugh, and embarrassed, Bobby stormed off in silence. Later that night, Tom and his small team were getting ready to close the diner. They wiped the counters, stacked chairs, and prepared to head home. Only 2 customers were still finishing their meals. Just then, the front door opened, and in walked Jones and Billy, the same 2 men from the film's opening scene. They took a seat and casually ordered food. Tom smiled politely, but explained that the diner was about to close and the kitchen was no longer taking orders. Jones didn't take it well. His tone turned sharp and impatient. Not wanting to cause any disturbance, Tom gave in and decided to serve them anyway. Before things could escalate, he turned to his waitress and told her to head home since it was getting late. As the woman made her way to the door, just moments from escaping the chaos, Billy suddenly jumped up and blocked her path. His tone turned aggressive, his behavior cruel. Before anyone could react, Jones pulled out a gun, aiming it straight at Tom, demanding that he hand over all the money. But Tom wasn't one to stay silent. He disarming Jones and taking down Billy in a matter of seconds. The entire room froze in disbelief. No one could comprehend how this quiet, polite man, someone who always smiled and treated everyone kindly, could fight with such precision and strength, like a trained assassin. News of Tom's brave act spread like wildfire. Both local and international media hailed him as a true hero, a man who single-handedly defeated a pair of ruthless robbers. When Tom was finally discharged from the hospital, his wife, Edie, arrived to bring him home, only to find a crowd waiting outside, cheering for their newfound hero. Back home, reporters had already gathered at his doorstep, eager for an interview. Tom, ever humble, thanked them but politely asked them to leave, saying he'd only done what anyone else would have done in his place. As he finally stepped into the house, his son Jack rushed to him with pride shining in his eyes, proud that his father, once seen as ordinary, was now the hero everyone was talking about. Meanwhile, Edie noticed a black car parked just down the street from their house. She assumed it belonged to a group of reporters still trying to get a story about Tom, so she didn't pay much attention to it. A few days later, life slowly returned to normal, or so it seemed. Amid the cheerful crowd, a group of sharply dressed men entered the diner. Their presence immediately changed the atmosphere. The leader, a cold-eyed man named Carl Fogarty, stepped forward and addressed Tom, but he didn't call him Tom. He called him Joey Cusack. Tom looked confused. Calmly but firmly, he denied it, insisting that his name was Tom Stahl. Carl just smirked, removed his glasses, and leaned closer, asking if Tom recognized him now. but Tom stood his ground. With a sly grin, Carl turned and left the diner, his men following silently behind. Concerned, Edie immediately phoned Sheriff Carney to report the suspicious visitors. The sheriff wasted no time. He tracked down Carl's car and questioned the men, but Carl only smiled and claimed he'd just stopped by for coffee. Later that day, Sheriff Carney visited Tom and Edie at home. He revealed that Carl Fogarty was no ordinary man. He was a dangerous crime boss from Philadelphia, known for his brutality and his uncanny ability to evade prison thanks to his wealth and connections. The sheriff asked Tom if he had any history with Carl or his men. Tom, looking both puzzled and uneasy, repeated that Carl must have mistaken him for someone else, this mysterious Joey Cusack he'd never heard of. The next morning, a quiet Sunday, Tom decided to head to the diner alone to clear his mind. The shop was closed, and the silence gave him a moment to breathe. But that peace didn't last. As he sipped his coffee, he noticed a familiar black car parked outside. Before he could react, the car drove off. Sensing danger, Tom's instincts kicked in. He rushed out of the diner, running home as fast as he could. Bursting through the door, he told Edie to grab the shotgun from the top of the cupboard, just in case Carl and his men decided to attack. Eventually, Tom made it home before anyone else. Edie, worried and confused, demanded to know what was really happening. As she questioned him, their son Jack, who was quietly eating breakfast, looked stunned, not because of the tension, but because he had just discovered that his mild-mannered father owned a shotgun. A few days passed, and life seemed to settle again. One afternoon, Edie took their daughter Sarah to a shopping mall for a bit of normalcy. But while Edie was distracted browsing through aisles, panic suddenly struck. Sarah was gone. Heart-pounding, Edie frantically searched the crowded mall until she finally found her daughter safe and unharmed. Just as relief washed over her, a familiar, chilling voice called out. It was Carl Fogarty. Calm yet menacing, he approached Edie and revealed what he claimed to be the truth, that her husband wasn't Tom Stahl at all, but Joey Cusack, a feared Philadelphia hitman known in the underworld as the Ghost. Carl even said it was Tom, or Joey, who had injured his eye years ago. Edie refused to believe a word and hurriedly pulled her daughter away. Meanwhile, at school, Jack's troubles grew worse. He became the target of cruel bullying by Bobby and his friends, who mocked his family and called his father a murderer. This time, Jack didn't hold back. He fought back fiercely, unable to stand the insults any longer. The fight got him suspended, and when he returned home, Tom was furious. He scolded Jack for resorting to violence, telling him that fighting never solved anything. But Jack snapped back, reminding his father of the night he killed 2 armed robbers. His words hit hard. Tom's anger boiled over, and in a rare loss of control, he slapped his son across the face, the first crack in the calm, gentle image of the man everyone thought they knew. As Tom sat down with Edie to finally talk about Carl and the strange accusations haunting them, headlights suddenly flashed outside their home. Moments later, Carl Fogarty arrived, this time not alone. 2 of his men followed close behind, their expressions cold and threatening. Carl calmly told Tom that he needed to come with them to Philadelphia, claiming that someone there wanted to meet him. But then, he revealed his leverage. They had taken Jack hostage. Edie froze in fear while Tom, trying to stay composed, agreed to go with them as long as they released his son. Carl smirked and nodded. Jack was brought out, frightened, but unharmed. The moment Tom saw his family safe inside the house, his calm demeanor changed. He looked Carl in the eye and said firmly that he wasn't going anywhere with them. Carl's smile vanished. He ordered his men to seize Tom by force, but they never stood a chance. Within seconds, both of Carl's men were dead. However, in the chaos, Carl managed to fire a shot, hitting Tom in the shoulder and sending him crashing to the ground. As Carl limped toward him, gun in hand, he sneered and asked if Tom had any last words. Struggling to breathe, Tom looked up and said coldly, "I should have killed you back in Philadelphia." Jack, trembling but determined, stood at the doorway, holding the shotgun. He had shot Carl dead to save his father. Tom was rushed to the hospital soon after. Not long after, Edie arrived, her eyes filled with confusion and heartbreak. She demanded the truth. Tom finally revealed everything, the truth he had hidden for years. He told Edie that he once lived as Joey Cusack, a feared assassin from Philadelphia. But after meeting her, he decided to bury that dark life forever and start anew, building a quiet, honest life as Tom Stahl, a husband, a father, and a simple diner owner. Edie listened in silence, her face torn between shock, anger, and heartbreak. The man she thought she knew was suddenly a stranger. Unable to process the truth, Edie stormed out, her heart heavy with betrayal. When Tom was discharged and returned home, the atmosphere had changed. The warmth of his family was gone. Edie kept her distance, and Jack, once proud of his heroic father, now looked at him with disappointment and resentment, realizing his father wasn't a hero after all, but a man who had taken lives long before that night at the diner. Days later, Sheriff Carney came by to question Tom about the deaths of Carl Fogarty and his men. Rumors had already begun to spread throughout town, whispers that Tom Stahl was actually Joey Cusack, a professional killer hiding in plain sight. The sheriff's tone was cautious but probing, clearly suspecting more than Tom admitted. Just as the tension thickened, Edie stepped in. Despite her pain, she stood by her husband's side and defended him. She told the sheriff that Tom was not Joey Cusack, insisting that her family had been through enough since the diner robbery and begging him not to make things worse. Her words, filled with emotion, managed to soften the sheriff's stance. He left soon after. That night, silence filled the Stahl home until the phone rang. Tom woke up and answered, his face immediately hardening. On the other end was a familiar voice, Richie, a man from Philadelphia. Realizing his family could be in danger, Tom made a painful decision. Without waking anyone, he packed up and left for Philadelphia, determined to face his past once and for all. When he arrived, one of Richie's men met him at a dimly lit bar and escorted him to a luxurious mansion, Richie's home. Inside, Tom came face to face with his brother for the first time in years. Richie, now one of Philadelphia's most powerful crime bosses, greeted him not with warmth, but with resentment. Their reunion was filled with tension and buried anger. Richie accused Tom of abandoning him years ago during their battles with rival gangs, disappearing without a trace and leaving him to clean up the mess. Tom soon realized the truth. His decision to leave that life behind had cost Richie everything. It had ruined his rise to absolute power. Feeling guilty, Tom offered to make things right, saying he was willing to work for Richie again as a hitman. But Richie had no intention of forgiving him. With a sinister grin, he gave a simple order, for his men to kill his brother. But Tom was no ordinary target. Years of violence and survival had sharpened his instincts. Within moments, he turned the tables, killing all of Richie's men in a brutal, calculated fight. Finally, Tom stood before Richie, gun aimed steadily at his brother. Richie tried to speak, maybe to plead. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger, ending it all. With his past finally buried for good, Tom returned home to Indiana. As he stepped into the house, Edie and the children were sitting at the dinner table in silence. The air was thick with tension. Tom stood there, battered and exhausted, unsure if there was still a place for him at that table. Then, Jack quietly reached out, offering him a plate of food. Edie met Tom's eyes and gently nodded, inviting him to sit down. It was a small gesture, but it meant forgiveness. That's all for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can be notified when we upload a new video. Thanks for watching.